Feeding your baby formula can feel like a guessing game. How much is enough? How much is too much? Today, we're breaking it all down, from the first days of life to those growing months. If you're a new parent, figuring out how much formula your baby needs can be one of the most common questions and worries. Every baby is different, but there are general guidelines that can help. In this video, we'll cover how much formula newborns need, how those needs change as they grow, and signs that your baby might be overfed or underfed. How much formula do newborns need? Let's start with the newborn stage from birth to about 1 month old. In those early days, a baby's stomach is tiny, about the size of a cherry at birth. That's why they only need a small amount of formula at a time. For the first few days, your baby might take about 1 to 2 ounces of formula every 2 to 3 hours. As your baby grows, their stomach expands, and they'll gradually need more. By the end of the first week, most newborns are drinking around 2 to 3 ounces per feeding. By the end of the first month, they'll usually take 3 to 4 ounces every 3 to 4 hours. Here's a helpful rule of thumb for formula feeding. Most babies need about 2 to 5 ounces of formula per pound of body weight per day. So, for example, if your baby weighs 10 pounds, they'll typically need about 25 ounces of formula in a 24-hour period. Keep in mind that this is just a guideline. Some babies may need more or less, and that's okay. How much formula for older babies? As babies grow, their feeding patterns change. Between 2 and 6 months, most babies take about 4 to 6 ounces of formula per feeding, with about 5 to 6 feedings in a 24-hour period. Around 6 months old, your baby may start solid foods, which can gradually reduce their formula intake. By this stage, they might drink 6 to 8 ounces of formula 4 to 5 times a day. By 12 months, babies typically transition to whole milk or a milk alternative, and formula feeding gradually phases out. But until that point, formula remains an essential part of their diet, providing key nutrients for growth and development. How do you know if your baby is getting enough formula or too much? Babies are great at giving cues. When your baby is hungry, they may root or turn their head toward a bottle, put their hands in their mouth, cry in a short, repetitive way that builds in intensity. On the other hand, a full baby might turn away from the bottle, spit out the nipple, appear calm and relaxed. So, how do we avoid overfeeding and underfeeding? Overfeeding can sometimes happen with formula-fed babies since the bottle allows milk to flow continuously. Signs of overfeeding include spitting up frequently, fussiness, or seeming uncomfortable after feeding. To avoid this, try feeding smaller amounts more often and watch for those fullness cues. Underfeeding, while less common, can also happen if a baby isn't fed on demand or has trouble latching onto a bottle. If your baby isn't gaining weight or seems excessively fussy, check in with your pediatrician. Some common questions parents ask about formula feeding. 1. What if my baby finishes the bottle but still seems hungry? If your baby drains the bottle and acts hungry, you can offer an extra ounce or 2. Babies are good at self-regulating their intake. 2. Can I use leftover formula from a previous feeding? No. It's important to discard any leftover formula after 1 hour to avoid bacteria growth. 3. What about nighttime feedings? Newborns need frequent nighttime feedings, but as they grow, they'll naturally drop these as they take in more during the day. Tips to make formula feeding easier and stress-free. 1. Stick to a feeding schedule. Feed on demand, but keep track of how often and how much your baby eats to identify patterns. 2. Prepare formula properly. Always follow the instructions on the formula container for accurate measurements. 3. Choose the right bottle. The nipple flow rate should match your baby's age and feeding style to prevent frustration or overfeeding. 4. Stay flexible. Every baby is different. Don't stress if your baby's intake doesn't match the average. What matters is that your baby is healthy and happy. Feeding your baby formula doesn't have to feel like guesswork. By following general guidelines, watching your baby's cues, and staying in touch with your pediatrician, you can confidently nourish your baby at every stage. Remember, every baby is unique, and what works for one may not work for another. The most important thing is ensuring your little one gets the love, care, and nutrition they need. Have questions about formula feeding? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences.